contract was signed in blood on a moonless night in Madeira, 1989. The child, barely 5 years old, kicking a worn leather ball against a crumbling stone wall. An old woman watched from the shadows, her eyes reflecting something ancient and hungry. She whispered words in a dialect older than Portuguese itself, and the boy's foot connected with the ball, differently from that moment forward. Perfect, precise, supernatural. Nobody questioned the meteoric rise. Talent, they said. Dedication. Genetic perfection. But those who looked closely at the photographs over the decades noticed something. The world chose to ignore the eyes never aged. The body transformed, sculpted, optimized beyond human limitation. Yet the eyes remained exactly the same, dark, depthless, belonging to something that had learned to wear man's face with unsettling perfection. The first death went unnoticed. A teenage boy in Lisbon, found in his bedroom surrounded by sporting CP posters. Heart simply stopped. No medical explanation. His mother mentioned he'd attended the match where Ronaldo scored his first professional goal. She remembered her son's face in the crowd, ecstatic, and then pale. So impossibly pale. The pattern emerged slowly, hidden within the statistical noise of a planet with billions. Each goal, each moment of impossible athletic achievement, was accompanied somewhere in the world by an unexplained death. Always a fan, always someone who had witnessed the moment, either in the stadium or through a screen, their devotion pure and absolute. The medical examiners found the same thing every time, hearts that had simply emptied, as if something had reached inside and extracted the very essence of life. Dr. Helena Cardozo noticed because her daughter was one of them. 16 years old, found dead in front of the television. Manchester United scarf still wrapped around her neck, frozen in a position of celebration. The goal had been magnificent, a bicycle kick that defied physics, defied anatomy, defied everything medical science understood about human capability. Helena held her daughter's cold hand and felt the absence, not just of life, but of something deeper. The soul, if such a thing existed, had been evacuated completely. She spent 3 years compiling the data, hospital records, death certificates, match footage, a morbid spreadsheet that grew with each season, each tournament, each moment of glory. 1,247 unexplained deaths. Every single one occurred within 15 minutes of a Ronaldo goal. Every single victim between the ages of 8 and 25. Every single one a documented superfan. The algorithm she developed was disturbingly precise. 0.00034% of viewers died per goal. Statistically insignificant in global population terms, but multiply that by 500 million viewers per major match, and the numbers became monstrous. The World Cup final alone had cost 89 young lives. Nobody believed her. The publishers laughed. The journalists dismissed her as a grief-crazed mother, inventing patterns where none existed. The police referred her to psychiatric services. Even her husband left, unable to watch her descend further into what he called conspiratorial madness. But then she found the others. A football analyst in Brazil who'd noticed the same pattern but feared career suicide. A data scientist in Seoul who'd been tracking anomalous death spikes around major sporting events. A priest in Naples who'd performed last rites for 17 young people, all of whom died with the same expression, ecstatic terror frozen on their faces, as if they'd glimpsed something magnificent and horrifying in their final moment. They formed a network, silent, careful. They began investigating the origins, tracing Ronaldo's life backward through newspaper archives, birth records, the scattered memories of Madeira locals who spoke in whispers about the boy who was touched by something old. The grandmother's name was Catarina, and she'd been dead for 30 years. But her house still stood, a decaying structure on the island's volcanic cliffs. Helena traveled there on a winter morning, the Atlantic wind cutting through her jacket like accusations. Inside, the walls were covered in symbols, geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. The journal was hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Catarina's handwriting, immaculate despite her age, detailed everything: the ritual, the entity, the price. The being had many names across cultures, but its function was singular. It consumed potential. Not life itself, but the unrealized futures that existed in quantum superposition around every human. It fed on the might-have-beens, the could-have-beens, the dreams that lived in the space between heartbeats. In exchange, it could invest that stolen potential into a single vessel, creating something that transcended human limitation. Katerina had offered her grandson, not out of malice, but out of love twisted by poverty and desperation. She wanted him to escape Madeira's hardship, to become something the world would remember. The entity accepted, but entities of that age always demand interest on their loans. For every moment of transcendent achievement, equivalent potential must be harvested. Young fans, their futures bright with possibility, their devotion pure enough to create a sympathetic connection, they were the currency. Their mitoveins extracted and fed into the vessel, keeping him perpetually at the peak, while they simply stopped. The ritual could be broken, the journal explained, but only by the one who completed it. Katerina had died before fulfilling the final component, the willing sacrifice of the vessel itself. The entity could not be destroyed, only transferred or starved. Helena brought this information to her network. They debated for weeks, confront him, expose the truth, but who would believe them? And confronting an entity wearing human skin seemed strategically suicidal. The solution came from Father Domenico in Naples. We don't confront the entity, we confront the man. Whatever is inside him. There was once a boy named Cristiano. We have to believe some fragment remains. We have to believe he doesn't know what he's become. They chose the Champions League final. Maximum viewership, maximum potential harvest. If they failed, hundreds would die during the match. But it also meant maximum witnesses if they succeeded in revealing the truth. Helena gained press credentials through a journalist in their network. She positioned herself in the tunnel where players emerged, holding a photograph not of her daughter, but of Cristiano at age 5. Before the contract, innocent and unmarked. He saw her, saw the photograph, and for one fraction of a second, something flickered across that ageless face. Recognition, horror, humanity. Do you know what you are? She asked quietly as security moved to intercept her. Do you remember agreeing to this? He stopped. The entire entourage stopped. The tunnel fell into impossible silence. Every goal costs a life, she continued, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Young people, children, fans, who love you so completely that they've created a sympathetic link. You're feeding on their futures. Has no one told you? Or have you always known? His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. For the first time in decades, Cristiano Ronaldo looked his age, looked older, looked terrified. I dream of them, he finally whispered, so quietly only she could hear. Every night, thousands of faces. I thought they were just dreams. I thought the match was delayed by 15 minutes due to an unspecified medical situation. Ronaldo did not play. Official reports cited muscle strain. But those in the tunnel saw something different, a man arguing with himself in Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, and languages that belonged to no living culture. A man trying to refuse something that had lived inside him for 36 years. He announced his retirement 3 days later. No explanation, no farewell tour, just a simple statement. My body has taken me as far as it can. It's time to stop. The deaths stopped immediately. Helena's algorithm showed a complete cessation of the anomalous pattern, but Cristiano himself began aging rapidly a year per week, as if his body was catching up to all the time that had been suspended. Within 6 months, he looked 70. Within 9, he was unrecognizable. He reached out to Helena in month 11. They met in a cafe in Lisbon, and she barely recognized the elderly man sitting across from her. I can feel it hungry, he said, hands shaking around his coffee cup. It wants another host. It's whispering names, young players, promising them everything I had. Then we stop it. Your grandmother's journal is incomplete. He smiled sadly. I've spent months researching. The only way to truly end it is to feed it something it cannot digest, something that breaks the algorithm. Helena understood before he finished speaking. No, there has to be another way. I've killed 1,247 children. His voice cracked. I didn't know. But ignorance isn't innocence. The entity will find another host, and the cycle continues. Or I finish what my grandmother started. The final ritual required a stadium, requires witnesses, required the willing sacrifice to occur during a moment of athletic achievement. Creating a paradox, the entity could not resolve potential being returned rather than consumed. They organized a charity match, old legends coming out of retirement for one final game. No one questioned why the prematurely aged Ronaldo insisted on playing for 5 minutes. No one understood the geometric patterns his team traced on the field during those minutes. formations that made no tactical sense but perfect occult geometry. The ball came to him at the penalty spot. One final shot. The crowd held its breath. He turned to the camera, and for a moment, every person watching 273 million worldwide felt something touch their mind. A presence, ancient, starving, desperate. "I return what was taken," Cristiano said clearly in every language simultaneously, a feat that should have been impossible. "I give back the potential. I choose mortality. I refuse the gift." His foot connected with the ball, but instead of moving toward the goal, it simply vanished, and so did he. Not violently, not dramatically, he simply ceased to exist, as if the universe had edited him out of the current timeline. The collective gasp from 273 million people created a psychic shockwave that mystics would feel for generations. And in that moment, something broke. The sympathetic links, the parasitic connections that had existed between the entity and its victims, they snapped simultaneously. In hospitals around the world, 1,247 young people who had been in unexplained comas suddenly woke up, including Helena's daughter, who had been in a vegetative state for 3 years, preserved by machines, while her mother pursued the truth. The official explanation was mass hysteria. A shared hallucination. Cristiano Ronaldo had never existed. Check the records. The football history books showed different names, different achievements. The posters in bedrooms transformed overnight, showing players who had filled the vacuum his absence created. But Helena remembered, and the others in her network remembered. And most importantly, the 1,247 young people who returned from the edge remembered fragment streams of a man who chose to unmake himself so that others might have their futures back. Helena's daughter asked her once, years later, what had really happened, why she had 3 years of missing memories, why she woke up with a stranger's name on her lips. "Someone paid a debt," Helena said, holding her daughter close. "Someone learned what they were and chose to stop being it. That's the only redemption possible for some sins." The old woman in Madeira, long dead, had wanted her grandson to be remembered forever. She got her wish, in a way, but memory is strange currency. The world forgot the legend, but a small group remembers the sacrifice. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the only way to break a curse is to accept it completely, understand its mechanism fully, and then refuse to let it continue through you. The entity still exists. Helena knows, hungry, patient, waiting for another desperate grandmother, another promising child, another moment of weakness where potential can be weaponized. But now there's a network, watching, waiting, ready to show the next vessel what they're truly becoming before it's too late. In a small apartment in Lisbon, Dr. Helena Cardoso maintains her algorithm, tracking anomalous death patterns around young athletes, young artists, young prodigies of any kind. The spreadsheet is mostly quiet now. Mostly, but last week, a teenage footballer in Manchester scored an impossible goal, and 3 fans died of unexplained heart failure. Helena is already booking her flight, because some stories don't end. They just wait for someone brave enough to rewrite them, one sacrifice at a time, until the pattern finally, permanently breaks. The question isn't whether evil exists, it's whether, when evil offers us everything, we have the strength to say no and the courage to undo the damage when we realize we said yes without understanding the price. Cristiano Ronaldo, in whatever space beyond existence he now inhabits, hoped he'd proven that redemption, however costly, is always possible, even for monsters who never meant to become monstrous. Even when the only forgiveness available is the kind you give yourself by ceasing to exist, the ball is still traveling somewhere, through dimensions where physics behaves differently, carrying with it the unrealized potential of 1,247 futures, returning them to their rightful owners one by one. That's the real goal, the only one that ever mattered. And somewhere, a grandmother's ghost finally rests, understanding too late that love, when filtered through desperation, can become the cruelest curse of all.